And here's what I know right now. What I know right now is that there is this deep breath connection between each and every one of us, that we are in this experience of learning our oneness and our connection throughout time and space. That in this day, there is this beautiful unfoldment of something good within each and every one of us, for each and every one of us, and within this community we call New Thought Northern Colorado. I know that we are absolutely blessed by the time that we have engaged in this place of spiritual nurturing and connection. I know that the words that Reverend Jenny shares today are absolutely inspired. I know that the things, the programs, the places of connection that we are providing are healing lives, building dreams, creating a world that works. And I just simply give it a blessing and a love and a nurturing. I stay in this place of being very aware and conscious of the spaces between us and filling them up with love and peace and compassion. And so I simply call this day good. I call it overflowing with all the things that each of us desire to experience in our life today. And I let it unfold, allowing the universe to absolutely surprise and delight me with its return to my prayer. For it is always, always more abundant than even I can imagine. And I give thanks for it all and ask you to join me in saying, and so it is. Let's try that again, brother.
All right, I'm back on my computer's internal microphone for the next song. Let's see. So, before I get into our feature song for today, I wanted to make a quick announcement about the Community Choir Project. We pushed it back to July 11th because I got real sick over these past 2 weeks. But I'm feeling better today. I thought I would celebrate by singing something a cappella. So, I'm going to sing the song Feeling Good by Anthony Newey and Leslie Burkuss. Birds flying high, you know how I feel. Sun in the sky, you know how I feel. Breeze drifting on by, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me, oh. And I'm feeling good. Fish in the sea, you know how I feel. Rivers wild and running free, you know how I feel. Blossom on the tree, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me, oh, and I'm feeling good. Dragonfly out in the sun, you know what I mean, don't you know? Butterflies all having fun, you know what I mean. Sleep in peace when the day is done, that's what I mean. And this old world is a new world and a bold world for me, oh, oh, oh. Stars when you shine, you know how I feel. Scent of the pine, you know how I feel. Oh, freedom is mine, and I know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me. Oh, and I'm feeling, and I'm feeling, and I'm feeling good.
Wow. Let's just sit in that for a minute. You know, a lot of centers don't have music. They don't have live music. And they certainly don't have our musicians. And this is why we continue to hold our musicians in such sacred space, because they bring us with their music into such a sacred place. Thank you, Jimmy. So let's just go from that. Let's continue that. Let's harmonize our hearts together. Touch your heart and just take some deep breaths. And repeat with me: care, appreciation, gratitude, compassion. Care, appreciation, gratitude, compassion. Care, appreciation, gratitude, compassion. And so, continuing in that place for another moment, I just want to acknowledge our wellness chaplains who have been calling most all of you for the last year. They have kept all of you in prayer every day. They have called and given you their prayers and let you know that they are all with you, thinking of you, that NTNC is supporting you with love. And so I just want to acknowledge these 4 dedicated, loving, beautiful people for the commitment and the dedication and all of the love that they have showered on our community over this last year. So I know that you all are just doing your jazz hands, your love hands, your gratitude hands right now for these 4 beloveds. And if you have any way to contact them, please let them know how much your prayers have meant this year. They have sure meant a lot to the people that I have come in contact with. They have sure meant a lot to me and to Leah and to Reverend Barb, because the work that they have done has supported us as well as supporting our entire community. So thank you so much. Thank you so much. Blessings. So these 4 plus a few more will be creating new lists, and we'll be calling you this year to continue letting you know how much you are loved and supported by our NTNC community. What a great thing. What a great thing. So today is the last day of June, and we are wrapping up this month's theme of the soul's call. And Carl Jung said something beautiful that kind of describes our soul's call. He said, "Who looks outside dreams, but who looks inside awakens." And that's what we have been exploring this last month. We have been looking at the different ways that we can awaken. We've been looking inside to learn how we can all benefit when we do our daily work. our daily spiritual practices of listening for and following the deeply intimate, challenging, and powerful work that our souls are calling us to do. And so today we will continue. We'll continue that look. We'll look at how our lives are expanded and enriched by listening for and following the soul's call to freedom. You know, the Science of Mind book is such a wonderful book. It lays out this beautiful philosophy that we live, that is the basis for how we learn to live our lives. And you know, in the very first page of the very first chapter, Ernest Holmes starts talking about freedom. He says that the divine plan is one of freedom. Bondage is not God ordained. Freedom is the divine birthright of every living soul. And the inherent nature of every person is forever seeking to express itself in terms of freedom. He goes on to say that when we listen to spirit, that inner voice, it tells us of a life wonderful in its scope, of love beyond our fondest dreams, of a freedom which the soul craves. I thought that was really beautiful. And what a beautiful way to call people into this new thought philosophy. But how do we attain that kind of freedom, the freedom that our soul craves? How do we get this kind of love, this kind of life? You know, I think most of us, certainly myself, at varying times in our lives, have felt really bound. We felt constricted by the circumstances that we're experiencing. Maybe it's, you know, feeling chained around a job that paid us well, but no longer brought growth or fulfillment. Or maybe it's been around a relationship that you felt you had to stay in, that I felt I had to stay in. Maybe it became contentious, or maybe it was just stagnant and unsatisfying. Or maybe, like me, many years ago, you felt chained to a way of being in the world, bound by what other people thought or expected of you, or even what you thought or expected from yourself. You know, in New Thought, we have our saying, change your thinking, change your life. But for many, I think when they hear that word change in that quote, terror comes up in their hearts. You know, and until we learn how to take that first step into the unknown, knowing that we are always supported, but believing at the time that maybe all we see ahead of us is uncertainty and possible insecurity and maybe lots of upset and chaos. You know, it can be really difficult to move toward the changes that will bring more freedom to our lives, that will bring more joy and more peace to our lives. But as Ernest tells us, our souls are forever called to freedom. You know, we're like that flower seed that breaks through the concrete. We are called to life that is forever moving toward upward expansion. As Ernest Holmes said, it behooves us to listen to that inner voice and to move with life rather than trying to hold it in check. Because otherwise, when we try to hold on so tight and keep things from changing, like the cracks that develop in the concrete when that tiny seed seeks to fulfill its purpose as a flower, our lives develop cracks and can not only fall apart, but maybe even explode in ways that we least expect it. And usually that means that we experience some suffering. You know, suffering in itself is not fun, but it can teach us a lesson. It can be there to show us that that change needs to be made. I love that old saying, you know, that pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. We may find ourselves in a place of suffering, but We can always change our thinking and find a way out of our suffering. In The Untethered Soul, author Michael Singer says that the prerequisite to true freedom is to decide that you do not want to suffer anymore. You must decide that you want to enjoy your life and that there is no reason for stress, inner pain, or fear. So to avoid that suffering, we decide. We decide to change our thinking. We take time each day to listen to our inner voice, to discern where the light is leading us, to learn to think in ways that let us make changes in a more peaceful, calm way. And when we do these things, our spiritual practices, we experience more freedom, more joy, more peace, more love, more life. Our souls are called to freedom. It is our divine birthright. That's what is God ordained, not suffering, but freedom. And, one of the very best ways to claim this divine birthright is to be truly and authentically yourself. Brene Brown has a quote that I love that says, "Authenticity is the daily practice of letting go of who we think we're supposed to be and embracing who we are." It can be scary sometimes to let others see us for who we really are. Sometimes it even takes a while for ourselves to be able to see who we really are. We become so used to fulfilling others' expectations of who they want us to be that we lose sight of who we really are. I know it was a big process for me to find my authentic self. And it was a more frightening process to live my authenticity in the face of others' expectations of me. I always thought I was weird, that I didn't fit in, that I was different from other people, and that I had to change in order to be acceptable. But then one Sunday I attended a Centers for Spiritual Living, and I was told that I was a beloved child of God, that I am whole, perfect, and complete just the way I am. And that revolutionized my life. I learned that what other people thought of me was none of my business, that I didn't have to live up to their expectations in order to be happy, and that as long as I was happy with myself, not only was that good enough, it was great. I learned that I wasn't born to fit in, I was born to stand out. And even better, I learned that the more authentically I lived and expressed myself, my soul's call to freedom, the more I inspired others to do the same. Sure, I made mistakes. And, as you step into living your life more authentically, you probably will too. But, mistakes, this is the other great thing I learned. Mistakes are just opportunities to move more and more closely into alignment with our spiritual nature. Mistakes aren't a punishment by some supreme being in the sky who is waiting to either reward us or punish us for our behavior. We do get to suffer the consequences of our mistakes, but there's also an easy way. There's an ease and a grace when we understand that we are loved by God, that we are loved by Spirit, that we are always divinely supported, of just moving away from the mistake and into alignment with our spiritual nature. In The Science of Mind, Holmes tells us that there is that within us which partakes of the nature of the divine being, and since it partakes of the nature of the divine being, we are divine. When we live in alignment with Spirit and our own divine nature, our lives do become wonderful in scope. We find that love beyond our fondest dreams and the freedom which our soul craves. So, as we move into this next month of celebrating freedom in the United States, let's make sure that we're celebrating the most important freedoms that we can. The freedom to be our authentic selves, whole, perfect, and complete just as we are. and to create lives that express our greatest dreams and our deepest awakenings. Holmes also says that as the inner light dawns, it delivers the outer life from bondage. This is in line with our teaching that everything is from within out. In other words, as I always say, attaining our freedom is an inside job. So, how would you answer these questions? How do I show up authentically? And in what areas of my life and in my being do maybe I need to do some inner work to be more authentic? Ask yourself, if I was living a life of freedom, how would my life look? Those are some deep and powerful questions, and well worth spending some time answering. And so your homework this week is to answer those questions. It's to take some time to listen to the voice of your inner being, and then take those steps toward creating the life of freedom that your soul is calling you to live. Listen to how you are being called to live in greater and greater alignment and greater expression of your spiritual nature. And then embrace and claim the most wonderful life, the life full of love, of right work, fulfilled purpose, peace, joy, of all good that is your divine birthright. Let's just take a breath. Take a breath and take that all into prayer. I know that freedom is our divine birthright, and that there is a place inside each one of us that is calling us to greater and greater expression of this divine beingness, of the freedom of expressing our true spiritual nature. And so in this time, I know that even though we may find ourselves in circumstances where we believe that it is difficult to step out, that it is difficult to make the change, that it is difficult to throw off those shackles of bondage, because we may be stepping into something unknown, something uncertain, a life that we're not quite sure if it's going to be any better than where we are. That we then take a breath and remember that we are divinely supported, that our freedom, that our highest and best spiritual expression is God ordained, that is what we are here to do. That is our purpose in life, is to fulfill our soul's call to freedom. Because when we find that freedom, then we find love, we find peace, we find balance and harmony. We recognize truth. We feel the warmth of light infusing every particle of our being. Our lives are enriched, they are empowered. They are good. That at the end of the tunnel of uncertainty, when we step out and we embrace the life of freedom that we are called to live, that it is a life of goodness, a life of beauty. And so I claim that life of freedom for myself. And I know that this life of freedom is available for each and every person who desires it and who spends the time and makes the choices to bring that life to fruition. And so I am filled with gratitude. I am filled with love. I am filled with peace. And I am filled with compassion for each one of us as we continue on this journey. as we continue on this journey to finding, expressing, and awakening to our soul's call to freedom. And so, with such deep gratitude for this time of sharing, I call it good. And if you would like to join me in this declaration, in this claim for yourself, please join me in saying, and so it is. Amen.